Can I introduce you to Carl Benjamin, our star speaker of the afternoon, who travelled nearly 4 hours to get here today. Thank you.
Hello folks, I'm going to not be as entertaining as Barry, I'm afraid, and I don't feel like I'm the herald of good news either. I'm actually kind of worried because there's this wishful thinking that takes hold when a lot of like-minded people get together and they say, well, hang on a second, surely this stuff is just ephemeral and it can't last. And again, I'm not trying to have a go or anything, but think of the amount of money and the resources and manpower that is being put into this. And as you were saying, it's the generational gap. While they're being indoctrinated, they don't know that there is a different way of living. And eventually, I mean, this is in the last, 5 years that this has really come to the fore. Imagine what it's going to be like in 15 years, in 20 years, in 100 years of just non-stop this. You know, generations upon generations of this being produced and pumped into the minds of your children, right? So I'm going to give you a bit of a scripted speech, so it's not going to be nearly as off the cuff, so I apologise, but it won't be as exciting and it'll be a little stilted, because I'm not a great public speaker, actually. But I think I've been working on what I think we need to understand conceptually with what we're looking at, because fundamentally, free speech is the cry of the underdog. It's the cry of the person who is being oppressed. The oppressor never has to worry about free speech because they're the one with the whip hand. And so when we say we want free speech, what is that? That's the opening of redress from the weak against the strong. But who are the strong and why are they oppressing us? And it turns out that if you want any kind of redress there, the strong have to feel morally obligated to the weak, that they should do something to redress the grievance. But look at the situation we're in. The people oppressing us want us oppressed. They want to hold you down. They hate what you are. You are something abominable to them. They aren't going to listen to you. Like, look at the chap's story with the score. You fail only on the ESG metrics because that's their consideration. And so how are we supposed to even appeal to these people? Well, in previous eras, we would have appealed on grounds of natural rights. Are these not our rights as human beings? But if you think about it, that was all predicated on Christian theology. And I don't know whether you've noticed, but we seem to have a rather atheistic civilization now. And so we can't appeal to the inherent rights of man as endowed into us by God. Now we have to appeal to civil rights. But what are civil rights? Civil rights are literally whatever the state wants them to be. This is why you get idiots like Jeremy Corbyn saying broadband is a human right. Fuck does that mean? You know, untethered from its religious foundation, the idea of human rights really evaporates into nothing. It evaporates into merely what the powerful will grant to the powerless. And what form of redress do you really have from that point onwards? We have no persuasive foundation with which to appeal for our free speech. We're appealing directly to the people who want to silence us. Why would they say yes to that? And so, the question, I think, is how could we persuasively appeal to them? How could we say to them, listen, there's something that you recognize that you are destroying here, that you are hurting people, you don't understand because of the way you look at the world. And so I think if we're going to couch grievances against the power structure, then we have to couch them in a way that they might understand them. And so we could say something like, the ability to speak freely and without punishment is actually the tradition of the indigenous tribes that occupy this land upon which you stand, and upon whose traditions you're trampling. Is that crazy? It really is, though. These are the indigenous traditions of the English that we are appealing to. They don't care, of course, and they'll say, well, hang on a second, we hate the English, they're evil. Okay, but at least now they understand that they are trampling on our hallowed tribal gods. Okay? It is that they will respond with, well, this is merely your moral prejudice. So, sure, maybe it is. But surely is not your objection to it your moral prejudice as well? And so now we have essentially resolved this into an irreconcilable difference. And I think it's worth quickly highlighting what they'll say in response. They will say, oh, you're a white supremacist. Okay. When they say you're a white supremacist, they are not accusing you of having an affirmative doctrine about skin colour, right? And you must all know this by now. They are not accusing you of having some prefabricated idea of a racial hierarchy or any nonsense like this, and they're not accusing you of believing in a master race. What they are accusing you of is adhering to the tribal gods of the English, right? These are, in short notes, many things that you'll recognise and you'll say, well, of course that's good, because this is your moral prejudice. Things like meritocracy, fairness, thrift, decency, industry, and even the minor gods, things like punctuality or politeness. Have you seen the Smithsonian list of what whiteness is? Speaking the King's English. I think we know what they're talking about, right? They're talking about the values of England and the English-speaking peoples. And it is because you prefer these things that they are accusing you of being a white supremacist. It's not about race, it's not about skin colour, it's not about a calculus, it's about your innate preference for your own civilization. That's what they're attacking you on. Because these people, and you've got to understand this is the most important part, they view themselves as individuals out of time and space. They don't view themselves as part of a continuum of civilization upon which we are all a product. They view themselves very much as self-made men who have, well, I say men, loosely, self-made individuals with a kind of objective view of the universe, who have been unshackled from their own moral prejudices towards their own tribes. And this is a product of the Enlightenment. This is the moral calculus of Kant, Mill, and Marx that is speaking and flowing through them. And they have no choice but to follow this. We can begin with Kant, right? The moral dictums of your tribe are not universal and therefore they're not valid. It's like, well, that's true. There are lots of people who don't believe in free speech. We know this. We see them all the time. And we can't actually persuade them that that's good because they are prejudiced in favour of their own moral judgments about their tribe. I mean, we could take your students, perhaps, you know, how much free speech do they talk about in their daily lives? And from this we can move to Mill. Well, wouldn't it just be better for everyone if you would just shut up? Wouldn't it just be more convenient for all of the other tribes that we're talking about that you just be quiet? And so now we have the utilitarian justification. Because at the end of the day, there are dozens of different moral tribes that will say, we don't approve of what you have to say and that makes us uncomfortable. That's hurtful to us. So you must be quiet. And from then we can move to Marx. Well, if you were given free speech, would that be fair to the other tribes? Would that be equal with the other tribes? No. The moral calculus of Marx is to homogenize and reduce everything to the lowest common denominator. And so what I'm saying is that this is the teleology of the Enlightenment itself. It is going to homogenize and erase civilizations. We have to be aware of this. Anything that is an idealistic prejudice, such as our tribal gods, the values that I listed, will be leveled in their mission to ensure well-being and comfort of all. Let me give you an example. Lockdowns were wrong. Does anyone disagree?
No.
Well, everyone in government disagrees. Everyone running our civilization disagrees. How is that? Well, you know what I mean. No one stood up and put their necks on the line and were like, no, that's it.
That's an important distinction.
I'm sorry?
It's an important distinction. I don't think that we've got to distinguish between what they really believe and what they say they believe.
Well, who cares? What they do is really what really matters, I think.
Yeah, but it's the effect that's the important thing.
Exactly, but the point is, if they're not prepared to put their necks out in order to actually say no, the cardinal criminal for this is Steve Baker, the principled libertarian who's in a socialist party, who wouldn't even put himself forward for the leadership. What's the point of having allies like that, right? This is something that we, as Englishmen, should never have consented to. You could see the reticence in Boris. It's like, oh, I've got to do this. And it's like, you then don't. Then bloody well don't. Because it's just wrong on the face of it. And then what happened after that? Well, censorship, mass censorship. The regime was set, the rules were enforced, and that's it. You're all gone. Right? So the world in which we thought that we had lived is gone. It's over. We're in a different paradigm, unfortunately. Right? And the silencing of the opponents of lockdowns and forced vaccinations and things like that were silenced with a remarkable amount of efficiency, malice, and brutality. And this, I think, reveals to us the monstrous form of what I think is a new breakaway civilization that is peeling itself away from our own. And what it's doing with these sort of particular cultural habits. Like, for example, and a great example of this, look at this building, right? This is a very traditional English pub, right? But from just over there, what do you see? The glass steel monstrosity looming over you. That could be in any city, in any place, and anywhere in the world. That is one of the monuments to this new civilization, whereas this is a monument to the old civilization, out of which this civilization is being birthed. And it is doing what it can to slough off the disgusting slime of Englishness, of Frenchness, of Germanness, of whatever civilization, the irrational sort of moral habits of tradition that these civilizations have built up. Right? This is what I think we are trying to defend. And it beautifies itself with a very pure aesthetic. Notice everything is clean, it is perfect, it is unadorned, and it is made for any human being. It's not made for a particular set of human beings. And so this is essentially Rousseau's final form. We are living in his civilization, we are watching his civilization being birthed out of our own. And this civilization has one dictum, and you may have heard it before. Everything inside the state, nothing outside the state, and nothing against the state. Exactly. It is the doctrine of fascism that we are seeing before us. There is nothing that the state feels now is not its business. Everything is the state's business. Everything about your life is the state's business. And I'm sure you're all familiar with what the World Economic Forum would like to do to you. Oh, they're going to monitor everything about you. They want your carbon footprint, they want to know what you eat, they want to know when you take a shit. Like pissing after eating too much protein was the latest thing I saw floating around. The World Economic Forum was like, I'm really bothered about this. Yeah, well, there we go. You can see how far this is going to go. This is the form of the world state that is being revealed to us. This is the scope of the thing, and look how much money they have. Is there any multi-millionaire in the room? Oh, that's really weird, because everyone at the World Economic Forum is a multi-millionaire. Right, that's really interesting. No one here flew on a private jet, right? Okay, that's just good to know. I didn't either, by the way. Yeah. But this is to show you the lopsided power differential between who's fighting this war, right? The ideology of the world controllers is intersectionality, because what intersectionality does is identify points of difference, and it seeks, of course, to level all of those differences. So everything may be internally equal. Now, the power behind intersectionality is that it is fractal. It can go out into anything. Once it's done with the races and the genders and whatever, it's going to go to the hairstyles. It's going to go to the food. It's going to go to eye colour. It's going to go to everything, because there's no reason why it shouldn't. Against this ideology, where's the validity of your claim of free speech? Where does it come from? Why would they listen to you? You know, you are against the perfect ordering of the world. You don't have freedoms. You have social responsibilities to the marginalised. And the marginalised changes on a daily basis. You notice that gay men have suddenly become not so marginalised anymore, isn't that fact?
I'm almost a pariah.
Yes. the entire gay community I've seen, and like, anyone who can be measured above or below another person will be put into the category of not marginalised. And so I think that we have to accept that these concerns that we have for free speech, meritocracy, fairness, liberty, well, these are our tribal gods. These are the irrational prejudices that we collectively hold. And they speak to an idea, a cherished right ordering of the world. How things should be is just something we've grown up with. This is traditionally how they've always been, and they feel right. And I don't see how we can win anything until we understand that every accusation that comes from them comes in bad faith. Right? Everything that they say is actually a way to harm you. And so allegations of racism, sexism, homophobia, blah, 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 going on forever, until they're met with the same indifference as a Zoroastrian being presented with the statue of Zeus. It's been like, the hell is this? Why would I care about that, right? Until that is the case, then no headway can be made. And if you watch things, just anything, any media outside from the London bubble, right, all they talk about is the very narrow band of woke politics. Oh, is there a racism scandal today? Oh, wow. Oh, fucking wow, another racism scandal. Well, what's not racist? Oh, actually, your entire civilization's racist, by the way. Well, then we're going to be doing this forever, aren't we? Until everything has been cut away and there's nothing left. Because we know they view our entire civilization as irredeemably bigoted, right? Because it is this and not something else. It excludes things from itself. There are things that are British civilization, and then there are things that are French civilization, and both of those things are racist. No matter how many people who are foreign say, hang on a second, I actually like the tribal gods of England. I actually like the freedom, the meritocracy, the rule of law, the limits of government. I like these things, and I think these are gods worth worshipping. I think that these are ideals that I could bring on myself, and I'd like to go and join the tribe. It doesn't matter how many foreigners we bring into the tribe, because the nature of the tribal gods themselves is what is at issue here. Were they rationally constructed? And the answer is no. These are the long product of a 1,000-year history of tradition that we have inherited. We didn't sit down with a blank sheet of paper and write down, this would be good, that would be good, the other would be good. We inherited this over a long process of development over 1,000 years. So it can never be acceptable to the world controllers who are looking at our civilization and saying, well, look, I have a spreadsheet. This is not going to be equal on my spreadsheet. This has to change. And so until we as a civilization have got this kind of awareness, until we can collectively bring ourselves to ignore the attacks of the communists, which we know are in bad faith, which we know are designed to hurt us, then I think that actually, and I hate to be the bearer of this bad news, that free speech is actually a lost cause. I don't think we have a way of appealing to them. Because, I mean, even if we were to win a battle now, like with the abolition of Tavistock, I mean, we lose on manifold fronts every day. We lose all the time. The world power, the world controllers, they occupy everything. They occupy the government, they occupy the media, they occupy universities, they occupy every corporation. But what do we have in response to that? And how have they taken it? They haven't taken it with force of arms. They haven't stormed it, a bunch of blue-haired trannies storming the place and kicking the doors down and holding people hostage. They've done it through the power of argumentation. They've done it merely through speech. And so it can be undone merely through speech. But the thing is, where do we start? Because I mean, look at the kind of coping mechanism that we have, right? GB News, the Free Speech Union, the fact that these exist show us an outline of what has been captured, right? If GB News is what the BBC should be, right? Even then, they're very tepid. Like, you're never going to see an interview with Tommy Robinson on GB News, which is weird because Tommy Robinson probably pays his license fee. So really, he should be on the BBC because they are purporting to represent him in some way. He's forced to pay them. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we are in a very dire position and I don't see where we can go. I mean, just look at the state of our tribal gods at the moment. Look at what little manpower we can conscript to our cause. Look how little energy they mustered in their own defences. Oh, you're a racist. Oh, God, don't call me a racist. That's it. Collapse. Everything gone. You're a transphobe. I mean, thank God there are the strong women who are standing going, hang on a second. Just men aren't women. I don't care how many... Like Posey Parker saying, well, from your perspective, yeah, I'm a transphobe. But that's a nonsense allegation that I don't care about. You know, that's not the issue. Look how few fortresses our tribal gods hold now. Where can you go that you would say, oh, that's an institution that would defend free speech? Can you even name one? Well, I can't name one.
Not in the UK.
Not in the UK, exactly, we're done, right? And so, until we find a message that is persuasive, that can win the moral battle upon which the intersectionals are dominating, I'm afraid we're in a very dark hour. And they're going to keep homogenizing. They're going to keep eroding our civilization into dust. I'm sorry to be the herald of dire portents, but I honestly don't see anything good on the horizon. And so Good luck, folks. I'm really sorry.